A few years before the Spider-Man and X-Men movies made heroic underwear perverts a theatrical mainstay, one true Marvel movie debuted in theaters to absolute perfection.
Goddamn bugs.
The original Men in Black movie perfectly encapsulates the big blockbuster movie of the late 90s while working in an oddly thoughtful and technically dense script that challenges the audience to buy into the alien conspiracy, thinking beyond the boundaries of normal logical thinking and daring us to fall down the rabbit hole of jaded 90s excess. Unlike other 90s alien pop culture mainstay The X-Files, Men in Black focused less on the paranoia and schlock factor of aliens that was cemented in B-movies of yore, in favor of a more cynical and almost nihilistic approach to the topic.
Did he say anything to you?
Yeah, he said the world was coming to an end.
Did he say when?
The primary discussion around Men in Black was never whether or not aliens existed, but rather that they do in fact exist and humans are too stupid to deserve knowing them.
A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
And in the case of the chosen few that do get that privilege, it's only to realize that they live just as mundane lives as any human would. What the first Men in Black movie expresses so perfectly is the theme of illusion. Nothing and no one is ever what it appears to be, but it's never treated with this stink of paranoia like more classic alien pop culture since, well, it's the 90s! Long gone are these thinly veiled messages based on the Red Scare in favor of a more fitting take on aliens for the era, which is ultimately that nobody cares.
There's always an alien battle cruiser or a Carillion death ray or an intergalactic plague that's about to wipe out life on this miserable little planet. The only way these people get on with their happy lives is they do not know about it.
The further out we've gotten from ye olden times of world wars, the more we've become desensitized to threats of violence because that's just what life has become in the background. Whether it's assuming the worst of little white girls reading quantum physics books or mistranslating leash as belt, Men in Black takes the general premise of aliens and uses it to pick apart the endless possibilities beyond surface-level assumptions. And then they fuck it all up with the sequels! Sub-zero levels of cold take here, but the Men in Black sequels are an absolute disservice to the original movie for reasons anybody with a pulse could assume of any movie sequel. Worse yet, these sequels have the added slap-in-the-face irony of failing to perceive the first movie past its surface-level premise of big, blockbuster alien action movie. These problems are more prevalent with the first and last entries to the series, but I want to focus on Men in Black 3 in particular for being awful in just how bare minimum serviceable it was. It wasn't memorably amazing, but it wasn't absolute dogshit either. It just was. A real textbook example of a 60-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. I say this because, as serviceable as the movie was, what really damns it is that the premise itself was already done to greater effect 16 years prior in the Men in Black animated series. Airing December 20th, 1997, The Head Trip Syndrome was the 10th episode of Season 1, with the villain of the week being a bigoted human that uses a stolen time machine device to eliminate the founding members of MIB, thus preventing the organization from existing in the first place. Already we're able to get past the whole Terminator ailment of failing to attack the root of the problem and aiming straight for what the villain of the week wants. No loose threads left hanging. Similarly, the villain of MIB 3 uses time travel, but only for the sake of killing Agent K, which works within the scope of what the movie wants to tell, but again, 68%. If anything, Head Trip Syndrome and MIB 3 should have had their stories switched. Not only is the former a standout considering how much of the other MIB animated episodes stick to the generic Saturday morning cartoon adventure formula, but it just feels so much grander when comparing it to MIB 3. Where the cartoon uses time travel as a means to focus on the Men in Black organization as a whole, the movie uses it to focus on K specifically, which is done to an okay degree of understanding. Released 15 years after the first movie, MIB 3 was clearly meant as a nostalgia grab, and as such treats the characters with a certain sense of fanboy. It isn't exactly nostalgic for the first movie, but is rather nostalgic for what people remember the first movie being. It wants J and K to be the bestest of best friends intertwined by fate who will always be around to go on alien hunting adventures together and nobody talks but them.
Corey and Sean in the big city and nobody talks but them. I'll be a cop and you run the deli and nobody talks but them.
Specifically in K's case, he's framed as this legendary hero of MIB, being responsible for putting away criminal alien Boris and in turn inadvertently killing off the rest of his species, the Boglodites, by putting a protective field around Earth. But they were the bad aliens, and even if they weren't, it still isn't genocide by dictionary terms, so take that, legal system. The premise alone is fine, but this sudden focus on K being a renowned hero really adds this unnecessary amount of prestige within the Men in Black organization itself. Sure, they've got higher-ups and grunt workers like any other job, but the point of that setup was that, well, it really was like any other job. For as cool and bombastic as the first movie was, Men in Black the organization functioned as just another career that took pride in the whole cog in the system mentality, with the only difference being they were very upfront about it.
You will dress only in attire specially sanctioned by MIB Special Services. You'll conform to the identity we give you. Eat where we tell you, live where we tell you.
The first movie treats everything so cynically, which pairs well with the theme of casually dropping that everything you know is a lie, like this really fancy charcuterie of sadness. And while the animated series has its own faults, it's able to at least stay thematically consistent with the first movie. The headquarters always feels bustling, but less in a Marvel superhero way, and more like a newspaper company having to stop the presses because there's a typo in the front page headline type of way. Just on a technical level, everything just looks vaguely ugly, though that's probably due to the style of Western animation at the time more than anything else. Thanks, Klasky Scoopo. Even the villain that episode is extraordinary in how absolutely mundane he is. Rather than make the villain another alien of the week, we find that the greatest threat to the Men in Black are humans themselves. The inherent problem with a lot of alien pop culture out there is it relies on inadvertently approving of being a crackpot theorist, leading to some of the more unsavory moments in scripted media.
Soldiers deploying to Iraq are given anthrax vaccines to protect them in the event of biological warfare. But with compromised immune systems, it's the vaccines that are attacking their systems.
Meaning we're infecting them.
Thinking that we're protecting them.
And while MIB isn't immune to the problem, it does take the time to mention that, yeah,
You're not affiliated with me.
even going as far as declaring the villain's bigoted attacks as being specifically hate crimes.
It's not about good or bad with him. Hate crimes are irrational.
Damn. Upon placing their perp as one Edmund Moffat, J and K find his apartment and are greeted to the standard crime drama twist of a crazy person wall. Moffat is obsessed with aliens, but if you really want to go there, so are the Men in Black, Moffat acting as the bizarre funhouse mirror version of them. He knows aliens exist, but rather than using that belief to form a constructive understanding of those species, he immediately assumes the worst since, well, bigot.
Alien lover!
While the Men in Black have grown accustomed to being constantly under threat from alien bad guys, Moffat encompasses the organization's fears of a human that somehow escaped from getting neuralized and is using his knowledge to retroactively create chaos. Compare that to MIB3's Boris the Animal, who is more or less on par with a James Bond villain.
Sorry, darling.
He serves as a means to get to the time travel fun than as an actual villain with any deeper connections to our protagonists outside of petty revenge. Like if they really wanted to drive home the movie's focus of K being a distant coworker to J, they could have at least had Boris be a thematic mirror, showing how an uncaring, closed-off personality could be harmful to those around you. But instead the drama with Boris and the drama between J and K feel inconsistent, neither really complementing the other until you realize that plot twist, Agent K is cold and uncaring towards J because he witnessed his father's death and they were destined partners all along and nothing has any meaning unless you're a main character with Chosen One syndrome. 68%! This isn't to say that the MIB time travel episode isn't wrought with its own writing woes. The B-plot of Jay's intellect increasing tenfold is a cheap way to explain why he's the only person to retain his memory after every timeline rewrite. The backstory with the Balchans and MIB is inconsistent with K's recollection in the movie. Moffat looking up the founding MIB members is weird when you consider he still resorts to spiriting them away one by one instead of in a single fell swoop. And yet I'm able to forgive all that because it's still able to retain the original spirit of that first movie. This devil-may-care attitude to science fiction that respects the audience enough to not go full autopilot, while also making sure not to get too heady. It's able to treat already established lore with the right amount of respect while keeping its head just out of its ass enough to be like, yeah, this is still a TV episode meant to extend the shelf life of a summer blockbuster, which I think a lot of sequels tend to forget. With this increase in movies and television leaning on the crux of nostalgia to mine for more media, there's a tendency for writers to get stuck in fanboy mode when creating the next new edition. The problems here aren't the editions themselves, but this mindset that frames those original works as franchises that are somehow untouchably perfect, while also being open-ended enough to warrant having side stories and the like made for it. And I'm not here to decry reboots and sequels. They've existed since the dawn of media and can be done well enough when the right team is involved. What I do find troubling is how there seems to be this unspoken pecking order where if a tie-in isn't a movie or a live-action TV show, the more versed audiences are checking it out or even being aware of it to begin with. It's less a matter of there's too many movie reboots at this point, and more that people only see movies and television as the dominant form of media, with everything else like comics and novels being seen as somehow lesser, even though in a lot of cases comics and novels are what inspire those movies and television shows in the first place. And I know it's because movies and TV are this form of media where you can just passively consume it, but if you just take that extra 2 seconds of digging, you'll be surprised with what you end up finding. It's shit. It's tons of shit. But if you do 2 more seconds of digging, that's where the real stuff is.